Mr. Duncan, notwithstanding the appearance of conflict, which the Ethics Commissioner says was there, he ruled that the Prime Minister did not further the private interest of family members or give preferential treatment to we. So what's your reaction to these findings from the Ethics Commissioner today?
Well, first of all, I take exception. Bill Morneau was found guilty on the We Charity scandal, so the Liberal government has been implicated in wrongdoing on this, period. Mm-hmm. And Peter, what it shows to me is that our accountability laws are out of date and they need to be updated. There is no way how the Prime Minister could help organize $500 million to go to his friends at the We Charity, of which his family gets $300,000 in expenses, and that's not a conflict of interest. We've said in this actually decision, what it proves is our work is not done. To your point about what's next, we need to update the anti-corruption laws and accountability laws in this country. I think people are looking at this today stunned, frankly, that this is not a conflict of interest. So our work continues on this to change the laws, and that's what Canadians expect of us.
Mr. Angus, let me get a reaction from you. What do you think of what we heard today from the Ethics Commissioner?
Well, I think the Ethics Commissioner dropped a bombshell. This is not about whether Bill Morneau should have recused himself. What we saw was that the office of the finance minister of a G7 country was openly hustling gigs for the Kielburger brothers. They were making calls to provincial departments. They were calling down to the municipal level. The conflicts were so clear. He gives a very damning picture about the insider access that people who were very well connected to key Liberal ministers, Bardish, Chagger, Qualtrough. They're not named in this, but they were all part of those decisions. The Morneau file is very clear that this whole boondoggle, $900 million deal was given. The Kielburgers were given the insider pass on this. So I think this is a very damning indictment of how the government does business. What we see from the Liberals is they're just saying, oh, thank God the Prime Minister didn't get convicted a third time. What we saw from the Trudeau report is, clearly the bad judgment of the Prime Minister of allowing himself to be wrapped around their finger. I mean, his family's working for them. His wife and daughter and mother are going to their big events in the UK. It created an atmosphere that allowed the Kielburgers to have the kind of unfettered access. That it was really inappropriate.
All right, Mr. Vancouver, let me have you respond to that. We started off talking about the Prime Minister, but the Ethics Commissioner did find 3 breaches of conflict, 3 breaches of the Act by the former Finance Minister. He's resigned. He's gone now. But to Mr. Angus's point, what does it say about the kind of access that certain people were getting to the Finance Minister of Canada?
I slightly disagree with Mr. Angus, and so does the Ethics Commissioner. It's very, very clear in his report that absolutely none of the sections of the Act were contravened. All of the allegations have been proven to be baseless. An appearance of a conflict or a question about a conflict is not a conflict of interest.
No, it's not what he said. It's not what he said. No, it's not.
Those laws have been followed.
Mr. Vancouver, it's not what he said about Mr. Morneau. He found that he breached the Act on 3 occasions.
Yes, I understand, but Mr. Morneau has resigned, and we're not talking about Mr. Morneau. We're talking about the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has nothing to defend anymore. This is extremely clear, and Canadian MPs can get back to the important business of supporting Canadians through this pandemic instead of trying to impugn the Prime Minister for something that has been proven baseless.
Mr.
Duncan, if you'd like to.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Duncan, yeah, I'd like to, let's move
Yes, I'd like to comment, Peter.
So to the point that, okay, Bill Morneau is saying, my bad, he's gone. He realizes he should have recused himself, said that again today, but he's gone. So what's the lasting impact of this decision today?
That we need better accountability laws. And I think, Peter, this goes to say it's not baseless. It was found as fact that Bill Morneau and the Prime Minister had actions here several times. And this whole, as Charlie mentioned, the whole organization around this and how it came about was completely inappropriate. And Liberals to say, oh, you're spreading conspiracy theories and it's baseless. Adam needs to go back and read the report again because it's quite damning. We need to keep the work going on this and to the work we need to do for Canadians. I agree with Adam. You know what that work should be? strengthening our accountability laws here and our conflict of interest laws, where it's not just a $200 fine. We need to toughen them up and make some real consequences for people like the Prime Minister and like Bill Morneau who break ethics laws.
Mr. Angus, let's talk about that. The Ethics Commissioner points out MPs had a chance to broaden the definitions in the Act to include the appearance of conflict, but twice refused to do that. So is the problem the Act, and does it need to be strengthened?
Well, certainly the Act needs to be strengthened, but you can always see government members will never let that issue of appearance of conflict, which the public understands. The public knows what the appearance of a conflict of interest is. But government members will continue to obstruct. They've obstructed our report on the WE scandal. So I'm asking my Liberal colleague there, who was just giving us a whole bunch of fiction about what was in the report, let us get our report to Parliament, because we actually have recommendations on how these things need to be changed. Because what the issue here is that people who are very well connected to key Liberal ministers got access to a $900 million program with no due diligence, no competition, that threw work that was being done on the pandemic completely out the window, left students high and dry, that we lost the finance minister of a G7 country in the biggest economic catastrophe in a century, and the Liberals seem relieved because their Prime Minister wasn't convicted for the third time. Right. That's not good enough. Our Privacy Committee has very clear recommendations. Okay, the Liberals are going to filibuster and try and block accountability.
Look, I'm not going to take any lessons from opposition on how to support Canadian youth. Our government was there for Canadian youth and students throughout the summer last year as Parliamentary Secretary for youth and for students. I can say that we stepped up and we were there for members of your riding, for constituents of your ridings as well. And I wasn't spouting any fiction, Mr. Angus. I was reading directly from the report, which said the Prime Minister did not contravene any of the subsections that satisfied that the Prime Minister did give we any preferential treatment, and the decisions he made in the matter were not influenced by the identity of any of his representatives.
Mr. Duncan, Mr. Duncan, beyond need. All right, Mr. Hang on. Beyond, I mean,
you can't have the final word here, Mr. Angus.
Mr. Vancouver, Mr. Vancouver, thanks very much. Mr. Duncan, let me move to you. Opposition parties want to keep this story alive through various committee studies here that you're trying to mount or keep going. In the face of this report, how do you keep doing that?
So, guilty that we want to keep discussing this issue and reforming our accountability and ethics laws in Ottawa. Full on guilty. Accuse me of that, and I'm proud to wear that with a badge of honor. As Adam says about trying to help Canadian youth. No, they tried to help the We Charity. They tried to help the Kielburgers, and that program got scrapped. That part didn't actually happen because the whole program collapsed because of what the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, and the government did. So their record of delivering for youth didn't happen as good as it could have last year because of their ethics challenges.
All right,
that's another fact.
Mr.